Moving to Uganda now, opposition MP Robert Kyagulanyi, also known as Bobi Wine, has been hospitalised while in police custody. He's due in court again next week. Wine has been charged for unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition. Riots have broken out in Kampala as opposition supporters demand his immediate release. Ugandans have expressed concern for Wine's safety after pictures of the severely injured MP circulated on social media. Wine and several other opposition supporters and MPs have been arrested in connection with the stoning of President Yoweri Museveni's convoy on Monday night. The president was campaigning ahead of a by-election in the hotly contested town of Arua. Well, let's get you more on that story now. I'm joined live from Kampala by our correspondent, Isabel Nakiria. Isabel, has the situation in Kampala calmed down after yesterday's riots?
Current tension is still high in Kampala. People are not calm, especially in Kamocha, a suburb of Kampala where Bobi Wine grew up and began his musical career. Today there were protests there. The youth there mounted blockades on the road and lit tires to protest his arrest. They are demanding for his release. That's where Bobi Wine began his career. His recording studio is there, and of course many of the people in that area identify with him. So protests are going on both on the ground and online. On social media, a hashtag Free Bobi Wine has started, both in Uganda and Kenya, interestingly. And there is an online petition that has also started about 17 hours ago. Over 1,500 signatures have been signed. Of course, the Human Rights Commission and other human rights bodies have also condemned his arrest, and of course other MPs. The U.S. Embassy has tweeted saying that Bobi Wine and all the rest demand a fair hearing, and of course that they demand that their immediate family should have access to them and medical attention should be given to them. But we've just reported, the reports are going on of very disturbing news of one of the members of parliament who was also badly injured. We hear that he was today brought in a military vehicle and dumped at the gate of a hospital in Kampala. So far, that's what we hear. We do not know anything more about his condition, but we hear that he's badly off.
Okay, Isabel, so that was another MP. There's been no treason charge for Bobi Wine, but his lawyer claims that he's been severely beaten. What's the latest you have on that?
I've spoken to his lawyer, one of his lawyers, who is still in Gulu. He tells me that, of course, Bobi Wine is badly injured. He can neither talk properly, nor sit or stand on his own, and neither can he comprehend anything that is happening around him. Yesterday, of course, in court again, when the charges were being read to him, he did not take any plea because he could not speak. He was airlifted to Kampala yesterday by a military chopper, and he's detained at a facility here. He says that they've allowed one of his lawyers, his family, and the Human Rights Commission to visit him today. So we expect that to happen today later. We do not know whether they will give him immediate medical attention, but of course that's the concern from his lawyers. They want him to get medical attention immediately.
And finally, Isabella, has the President, Yoweri Museveni, has he spoken out about the unrest taking place at the moment?
Last evening, President Museveni released a statement, and in the statement he was condemning the violence in Arua town in northern Uganda, and he also did say that his party lost the election because the opposition ferried voters from elsewhere to come and vote in Arua, and that's the reason why his party lost the election. But he also did mention that the charges against Bobi Wine, that is illegal possession of firearms and ammunition will go on. So we expect Bobi Wine to appear in court again next week on 23rd. Regarding his condition, that is still very scanty.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. That was our correspondent Isabel Nakiria there in Kampala for us. Well, let's get you more perspective on those developments out of Uganda. I'm joined live in the studio by Dunstan Omari. He is a political analyst and advocate at the High Court of Kenya. Thank you very much for joining us, Dunstan. First off, Bobi Wine, he's appeared before a military court instead of a civilian one. What's your take on that?
Under the Ugandan laws, under the UDPP laws, the law spells out in section 19 that whoever is found with a military hardware, like a gun, AK-47 or those guns that are owned by the military, you will be charged in a martial court. That has been challenged in the Constitutional Court in Uganda, and the Constitutional Court has said that is illegal. So Bobby cannot appear before the court-martial under the case law, the decision of the Constitutional Court. Uganda, as it is, does not respect the decisions of the court. Therefore, he's being charged under a law that has been declared unconstitutional.
So you've got a complicated situation.
It's a very complicated situation. And internationally, universally, court-martials belong to soldiers. They don't belong to civilians. So Uganda, what it's doing is fundamentally going against fundamental human rights that have been accepted universally worldwide.
Okay, let's talk a bit more about Bobi Wine. He's a hugely popular figure, as we know, in Uganda because of his music. Do you think this trial will lead, well, we've already heard there is some unrest. Do you think it's likely to lead to more?
What is happening is that Bobi Wine is taking the same route Museveni took for him to come to power. Whenever you persecute somebody who has connection to the masses, Museveni, the president at one time, was persecuted by the regime of dictator Idi Amin. He disappeared to Uganda, to Tanzania, led a revolution, came back and took to power. So the more they are persecuting Bobi Wine, the more they are making Bobi Wine an institution. The opposition in Uganda has been largely under Dr. Besigye, who has lost the clout. Now that we have Bobi Wine coming in, the more they are arresting, the unrest that we are seeing, the type of international media that is capturing this story, the story is now an international question. So we are getting, he's getting a bigger profile, and he might be the ground on which the opposition will rally to make the President Museveni's term come to an end.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about what happened. I mean, how much of a concern is the attack on President Yoweri Museveni's convoy? Do you think it points to a wider sense of anger among Ugandans?
There's quite a lot of anger in the Ugandans. The Ugandans have tried all their means through the electoral process to unseat Museveni. It has failed. President Museveni has entrenched his rule in Uganda. So that rallying point has been missing. Now that Bobi Wine has come in, that anger is boiling. And if that anger continues to boil, we are likely to see a lot of problems in Uganda. That might be the only way to restore democracy in Uganda. So that anger is building to be a national anger, and it is building to be an international anger, because once everybody is looking at the events in Uganda, the atrocities that we are seeing, the type of torture that we have seen all over on Bobi Wine, and very many others that have not been reported, is a clear indication that the Ugandan people have a lot of anger.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. That was Dunstan Omari, a political analyst and advocate at the High Court of Kenya. Thank you very much for coming in and giving us your insight on the situation.